Welcome back to the Lior Super Fun Learning Hour.
Great to be here.
This is our fourth deep dive in this seminar series on the unconscious. We've covered some ground, and today we're tackling something pretty significant.
Yeah, we are. We're diving into Betty Joseph's work, specifically her paper on, well, projective identification.
Right, projective identification. It sounds complex.
It can be, but it's also incredibly insightful. It really shifts how we think about the unconscious, not just as, hidden stuff inside someone's head.
Okay, so more than just hidden content.
Exactly. More like something dynamic, something relational, something that gets lived out, especially in intense relationships.
Like in therapy.
Like, definitely in therapy, yes. But elsewhere, too. Our goal today is really to unpack Joseph's core ideas about it.
And understand how it helps us see the unconscious as actively lived.
Yeah.
Shared, even.
Precisely. And, you might find this offers some real aha moments about maybe why interactions feel a certain way or how we communicate things without even realizing it.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's dig in. Where do we start? I know the idea didn't originate with Joseph herself, right?
That's right. You have to go back to Melanie Klein. She introduced the concept, projective identification, into analytic thinking way back in 1946.
1946, wow. And was it immediately accepted?
Oh, not at all. There was quite a bit of debate, some dispute, actually. It was pretty radical for the time.
But it stuck around.
It did, because ultimately, people saw its clinical value, especially, Klein thought, for understanding neurotic patients, people struggling with those internal conflicts that cause distress.
So Klein saw it as quite central.
Very central. She described it not just as one defense mechanism, but as a whole. A constellation. A constellation of object relations, anxieties, defenses.
Object relations meaning how we relate to others based on early experiences.
Yeah, or internal patterns of relating. For Klein, this whole projective identification constellation was fundamental to someone's inner life, and especially key in understanding psychological disturbance.
Okay, so it's foundational, but let's get into the nitty-gritty. How does it actually work? The mechanics of it.
Right. It's essentially a two-step process at its core. First, parts of the self get split off.
Split off, like what kind of parts?
Usually the unwanted stuff, feelings that are too difficult to handle, maybe intense rage or overwhelming anxiety, envy, things the person can't consciously manage or accept.
Okay, so you split it off internally.
And then second step, you project it. You unconsciously put it into another person, an object. In analytic terms, could be the mother, the analyst, a partner.
Right, splitting and projecting. That sounds a bit like regular projection, maybe.
But here's the crucial difference, and this is the second key part, the identification bit.
Okay.
The person then unconsciously identifies with those projected parts in the other person. They relate to the other person as if they really are embodying that projected part.
Whoa. So you don't just get rid of it?
No. You maintain this unconscious link to it. It's like you put your anger into someone, and then you relate to them as the angry one, and that shapes the whole interaction. Klein said it colors the infant's perception of the object.
So it influences how you see them and act towards them afterwards.
Absolutely. You're interacting with your own projected stuff, but you experience it as coming from them.
That is intricate. It sounds like a very deep, tangled kind of communication. Why? Why do people do this? What's the purpose?
Well, there seem to be a few unconscious reasons. One is pretty straightforward, just trying to get rid of unwanted parts of the self, like unbearable pain or anxiety, shove it somewhere else.
Makes sense. Get some relief.
Yeah. Another is about control. To control and to avoid any feelings of being separate from the other person, especially important for infants maybe, where separateness feels terrifying.
Maintaining a connection, even if it's based on projecting things.
Sort of. It can also be about gaining or getting rid of unwanted parts of the self, almost like trying to swap parts. And even, quite fascinatingly, trying to get into an object to take over its capacities and make them its own. Like trying to unconsciously absorb someone else's strength or goodness.
Wow. So it's this really active, dynamic process, not just a passive defense.
Exactly. And that leads us right into Betty Joseph's big contribution.
Okay. Her emphasis on it being lived.
Yes. She really pushed this idea that projective identification isn't just some abstract theory. It's an active, lived thing that happens between people.
So she moved it from just being about hidden content inside one person
to being about something dynamically expressed and experienced in the relationship. The unconscious isn't just in there, it's out here in the interaction.
playing out in the space between people.
Right. which has huge implications for therapy.
How so? What does that mean for the analyst?
It means the analyst often directly experiences what it's like to be on the receiving end. They feel what it's like to be treated as if they are that container for the patient's projected parts.
So the analyst might start feeling confused or angry or inadequate.
Precisely. And that feeling, that lived experience for the analyst, becomes crucial data. It's a window into the patient's internal world, their anxieties, their ways of relating that you might not get just from words.
So the analyst uses their own emotional response as information.
A key source of information, yes. It highlights how relational psychic change really is.
And this connects to Wilfred Bion's ideas, doesn't it? The container concept.
Absolutely. Bion built beautifully on Klein's work here. He talked about the mother, or the analyst, functioning as a container.
A container for...
For the unbearable stuff the infant or patient projects. These raw, unmanageable states, Bion called them beta elements. Things like sheer terror, raw distress, feelings that haven't been processed or made sense of yet.
So they're projected into the container.
And the container's job, ideally, is to tolerate them, to process them, make sense of them somehow. Bion called this the alpha function, and then metaphorically return them to the person in a more digestible form.
So the analyst takes in the raw fear, say, holds it, makes some sense of it, and gives back something. Calmer, more understood.
Exactly. Not necessarily by saying you're projecting fear, but through their way of being, their understanding, their interpretations maybe, they help the patient metabolize it.
Metabolize, like psychologically digest it.
Yeah. And that process, being contained and having these difficult parts returned in a manageable way, is how Bion saw psychic equilibrium and psychic change happening. It helps the patient learn to integrate those parts they had to split off.
That's really profound. It shows how therapy isn't just talk, it's this deep relational process.
It really is.
And it must be central to transference then, how the patient relates to the analyst based on past figures.
Oh, absolutely central. Projective identification is arguably a primary mechanism of transference. It's how the unconscious gets shared and enacted right there in the therapy room.
So the patient isn't just remembering past relationships, they're kind of making the analyst into those figures.
In a way, yes. They unconsciously put parts of themselves, their expectations, their old relationship dynamics into the analyst. And then they treat the analyst as if they truly embody those things.
Like projecting their inner critic onto the analyst and then feeling judged.
That's a perfect example. Even if the analyst is being supportive, the patient experiences them as critical because that's what's been projected and identified with in the analyst.
So the analyst feeling maybe subtly pressured to be critical or feeling unfairly accused of being critical, that's the clue.
That's the vital insight. That feeling in the analyst, that sense of being subtly pushed or pulled or made to feel a certain way, is often the direct experience of the patient's projective identification at work. It tells you so much about their inner world.
Okay, this is really helpful, but I need to ask for clarity. How is this different from just plain old projection? People use these terms interchangeably sometimes.
That's a really important question. They are different. With simple projection, you basically disown something, like your anger, attribute it to someone else, he's angry, not me, and kind of push it away. You distance yourself from it.
Okay, so it's just attributed outwards.
Right. But with projective identification, there's that crucial extra step. The ongoing unconscious identification with the projected part in the other person.
Ah, the invisible string idea you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. You don't just disown it, you remain unconsciously connected to it, preoccupied with it in the other person. You're trying to control it in them, or you're relating to them based on it. It affects the relationship much more actively and intensely.
So it's more entangled, more interactive.
Definitely. It's an active, influencing interaction, not just getting rid of something. There's a continued unconscious investment in that projected part within the other.
That makes a lot more sense. It's a much more involved process. Okay, so taking this out of the therapy room, how might this show up in everyday life? For, listeners thinking about their own relationships, friendships, family, work.
Oh, it's everywhere once you start to tune into it. Think about those times you suddenly felt, inexplicably irritated with someone. Or maybe you feel strangely controlled, or like you're being subtly maneuvered into feeling guilty or incompetent.
That feeling you can't quite put your finger on.
Right. It could be projective identification at play. Someone might be unconsciously dumping their own anxiety or their own self-doubt or their anger onto you.
And then treating you as if you're the anxious one or the incompetent one.
Exactly. And you might even start to feel a bit anxious or incompetent in response because you're picking up on that unconscious pressure.
I remember hearing about Like a manager who is maybe secretly insecure about their own ideas,
Yeah.
and they constantly accuse their team of being resistant to change or lacking initiative. They project their own fear onto the team.
That's a classic kind of dynamic where this might be happening. Or think about families. Sometimes one member unconsciously gets designated to carry a certain feeling for everyone, like the difficult one or the failure.
So they internalize what's been projected onto them.
They can, yeah. They end up embodying that role, struggling with feelings that might not even entirely originate from them. It really shows this powerful, often totally unspoken layer of communication.
Where feelings and parts of ourselves are constantly being sort of transferred back and forth.
Actively transferred and received, yeah.
Yeah.
Influencing dynamics all the time, usually way below conscious awareness.
Wow. That really does deepen how you might think about interactions. It's like a whole hidden layer.
It really is. It challenges our idea of being totally separate individuals, doesn't it? Shows how interconnected our inner worlds actually are.
So, wrapping this up a bit, Betty Joseph's work, building on Klein, really paints a picture of the unconscious, not as this static hidden box,
Right.
but as this dynamic force that's actively lived out and, importantly, shared between people in relationships.
Yeah, it shapes how we connect, how we clash, how we misunderstand each other, and ultimately how psychic change and growth can happen through relationship.
Which leaves us with a really interesting question to ponder, doesn't it?
I think so. For everyone listening, if you consider how much of our inner world we might be unconsciously giving to others, projecting into them.
And how much we might be receiving from them in the same way.
Exactly. How might understanding this concept, projective identification, actually change how you perceive those unspoken dynamics playing out in your own life, in your daily interactions?
That's definitely something to think about, maybe noticing those subtle feelings, those pulls, those relationship patterns in a new light.
It's a powerful lens.
Well, thank you for unpacking that with us. It's been fascinating.
My pleasure. It's a rich topic.
Indeed. Thank you all for joining us on the Lee or Super Fun Learning Hour. We hope you'll carry these ideas with you. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.